There he is. There it is. All right, guys. Y'all know what it is. Oh my goodness. Welcome, welcome, welcome to another episode from the battle to the glory. Yes, we are here with a special guest. And before we get into our topic, is equality the same as sameness? But before we get into that, we're going to introduce our guest, CJ. Oh my goodness. She got a great testimony, a great story. So, guys, we're going to dive into her story and what led her to God and just the battle to the glory. So let's go. Let's dive in deep. So, CJ, tell us a little bit about yourself, what's going on in your world, where you're from, and just enlighten us. Tell us what's going on.
Well, I'm from Cambridge, Ontario, which is about an hour west of Toronto. And I am disabled. I am 80% bedbound. And by getting sick, I was saved.
Mm.
Yeah. When I was a child, I had a childish understanding of God. And a lot of very bad things happened to me as a child. Um, I was first attacked on the way to school in grade 2 by 3 boys and sexually assaulted. At the same time, my mother was dying of cancer over 13 years. So she passed away when I was 16. And a few years after I was attacked by the 3 boys, a family member who was mentally ill took up the calling of abuse. So I lived with that for years. And he was eventually removed from the household after he tried to kill me a couple of times. So yeah, my childhood isn't something I'd wish on my worst enemy. But I think one of the worst things that happened to me is that after my mom died, and you have all the funeral services and church gatherings and stuff. And I asked somebody, why did my mommy have to die? And somebody basically said, well, she wasn't godly enough. She didn't pray enough. And I turned from God. From that moment on, it was like, he doesn't love me. He doesn't care about me. Fuck you. Pardon my language. I don't normally swear, but that was I was a 16-year-old who was 30 before she was 13, who had been through hell and back. And I said, enough. You don't love me. I'm not going to pay any attention to you. And I turned from God. Um, and unfortunately, that allowed other influences into my life. Now, frankly, I was an alcoholic from my first drink. So that started about the age of 7. But I didn't have adequate access to be obviously an alcoholic until later, after into my late teens and 20s. And when I finally got my first job, things started to decline. But I kept avoiding the situation and doing what's called lowering the bar. Have you heard that term? Are you
Oh,
familiar?
yes. Yes.
Yeah. So for your viewers who may not be familiar, lowering the bar is, if I ever get in trouble at work, I will never drink again. And you get in trouble at work. Yeah, but my boss is an a-hole. It wasn't my fault. But, if I ever get fired from my job, I'll never drink again. And then you get fired from that job. And I would lower the bar and blame, that one was partly my fault. I shouldn't have sent an email to somebody else's boss. It was a fiasco. Um, but my boss is an alcoholic too. So, he allows this other guy to run his business and he's running it into the ground, not doing his job. And every excuse that I could possibly make. I realistically knew I had a problem by the time I hit my 30s, but I didn't know what to do. I mean, I quit every day. It's like, I'm going to stop drinking. I'm going to stop drinking. But I didn't. And it wasn't until Well, 13 years ago, I got the most wicked birthday gift ever. It was a wicked virus,
Mm.
and it put me in this wheelchair. And don't it always seem to go that you don't know what you've got till it's
Gone.
gone. And literally overnight, I went from scuba diving 2 to 4 times a day to being barely able to speak 2 to 4 words at a time, becoming, at that point, I was about 90% bedbound. I fought as long as I could to stay in the tropics and go back to my passion, but that didn't work out. Ran out of time and money. I was flown back to Canada, landed in a semi safe situation initially, which then later didn't turn out that well. But within 5 days, I made it through the doors of AA. And AA, for all intents and purposes, started off as a Christian program. And there was talk of God, of your understanding. And it just so happened that the meeting that I was going to was right beside a little Mennonite church that I had wanted to go to for years. But I was too afraid that they were going to be horse and buggy-ish. And it was by love and by God's grace that I made it through those doors. And I found a group of people who could love me until I could love myself, that held me up when I was too weak to stand on my own. They took me to some of my medical appointments and speak when I was too weak to speak. They made sure I got to see some of the specialists in Toronto. They bent over backwards and helped get me to where I am today. And those, by being in AA, I lost all sense of passion, purpose, everything. I mean, to me, I couldn't dive. I couldn't drive an 18 wheeler. I couldn't be a paramedic anymore. I was just taking up space in the world. I was a burden on society. I had no value. I had no money of my own. I felt worthless. And between AA and the church, I found that purpose and passion again. I started writing music for my church, new hymns. I started learning and watching AA speakers and thinking, oh, if I had walked in on this particular day, I don't know if I would have ever come back. And then I'd hear another speaker and they would just make me want to come back the next day. And I started learning what I liked and what I didn't like. And I learned how powerful words can be. And that got me onto the path of joining Toastmasters International, and that got me into becoming what's known as the singing speaker. That is what I do. Is I combine stories, songs, and skill building, and I teach mostly women and newly disabled people how to become joyfully resilient. But if I hadn't have gotten sick, if I hadn't have been forced back to Canada, if I hadn't have been going to AA and met those people at that little church, I would not have been baptized and I would not have found my way back into God and the glory that He has provided in my life. And the first thing I always think about is amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found, was blind, but
Now
now
I
I
see. I had to get in there with you, honey.
Amen.
Uh,
It's just amazing how everything that had to happen to come back to him, to come back and start finding my faith and surrounding myself with the people, the right people, and finding the best way to be of service not only to myself but to my community. And yeah, I'm just very blessed.
I
Yeah.
know. I definitely can see that. That's why I look when we first talked and you began to tell me your story, and I told you to stop because I wanted you to tell the world your story because I felt it, in my spirit, in my soul, that you've been through something, but God has brought you out to the marvelous light, in the hurt and the pain, and definitely, and that's what happens in the world. Sometimes we people go to the church and they look for something and they get hurt and then it turns them away. But you know what? At the end of the day, God definitely used you and continue. He's going to use you, and He's going to continue blessing you. And guess what? You got more things that God's going to do for you in your life. In your current situation, He's definitely going to do some miraculous things. I can't even. I'm getting tongue tied right now because I'm so excited. I'm really filled with joy because that's the first thing you did for me when we was talking, and I was interviewing you. You started to sing, and just right then and there, I said, God, use her. That's what I was saying, use her, because you know what? At the end of the day, that's what people need to see how you can come out of the darkness to the marvelous light, and you truly are a living example of what it looks like and what it is to have a desire, what it is to have a desire to live for God, even in your darkness, even in your pain. And God took that pain away because I can see the joy. Like I said, I follow you on Facebook, and I can see the joy that you no, I'm not just saying this. I can see the joy that's on the inside. I can't see the darkness. I can see the joy. When you smile, when you sing, it's the joy that God has poured into your heart, poured into your life. And you said it. Here's confirmation for you is that God has put you around the people that's going to do everything for you, going beyond what they're called the duty is. They're going to do that because God put those people around you so you can, because you surrender to Him. Not, some people say free will, but no, we all have a choice at a point in our life to say, I'm still going to serve you no matter what. You can also say, you know what, I'm not going to serve you because you did these things to me. And guess what, God still is going to love on you. He's not going to say, well, if you don't want to serve me, I'm not going to do it. No, He still brings that comforter, that person that's going to uplift you. And you said it, they uplift you. You said, I wanted to go here. You went there and they began to uplift you. When you didn't even recognize it, they began to do that. And so, that's the qualities of, of somebody who's coming out of the darkness and into the marvelous light. You are definitely going to be a beacon of light for others that are in your situation, are going to come out of their situation. And I love it. I love it that you're here. I am so blessed and honored to have you as a guest here on From the Battle to the Glory. It's truly an honor. I'm so serious. Lady T, you have anything you want to? Oh, she's coughing. Yeah, T, you want to say something to her before we dive
Yeah.
in?
Yeah, it's great to have you on because your story is beautiful, honestly. We take for granted what we have, the abilities that we have in life. And you had so many abilities and you enjoyed life to the fullest, and then it was taken away through sickness, but it helped you get into a direction. I got a cough, y'all.
Go ahead.
Hold on.
Go ahead, cough. CJ, someone made a comment. I just want you. I don't know if you can see it. The comment was the fact that you're singing, smiling, and giving back. The way that you move, the way that you are, moves me. I appreciate people like you, and I'm going to say to you that's he is the host of Sipping and Tripping podcast as well as my brother. And so I when he says that, I'm not just saying that, I'm telling you that he's truly saying that from his heart. He means that, and he's moved by that. He's definitely moved by that, and
No,
I
thank you.
am as well. Go ahead, Lady T.
But also because you still use your voice. You're using your voice. You're using your song. You're using the love for God. You know, even though everything that happened in your life brought you to the place that may have taken away certain abilities, you are able to look through and see that there is a blessing in it. And so that is the message that we need to tell one another, that no matter what we go through, no matter what has been taken away that we think has been taken away, we are still blessed. And you're still saying that to people. And that is beautiful. And we love that because that is God. We know God is in you because you are showing yourself without the abilities that you had from the beginning, but now you're having another ability. It may look like in our eyes there's a disability, but you have other abilities that you are really bringing forth that is really becoming a bright light to many other people. And that is the glory of God. So I appreciate you as well, because this is what we need to see in people more often, how glory can come through us no matter what. You know, whatever the situation is, and you are a living example. So I appreciate you as well.
Yes.
I think that one of the other gifts that God gave me was this saying, which is, I could do
Choose
this.
to live
Live joyously.
joyously
Within
within
the
the
tempest
tempest
of
of
the adversity.
adversaries.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So I woke up and I was sort of in that sort of half awake, half asleep state. And this message came to me: choose to live joyously within the tempest of adversity, dot, 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 that we call life.
Yeah.
There isn't anybody in the world who gets through it unscathed.
Yep.
Nobody.
Nobody.
Everybody suffers. Everybody goes through trials and tribulations. And it's how we approach them, it's how we think of it. And that's why I teach people how to become joyfully resilient, because we're all going to go through, we're all going to get knocked down. Now some of us get knocked way down,
Yeah.
and have to rebuild from scratch like I did. But this isn't a comparison game. This isn't, oh, my life was so horrible, you should pity me. The person who's going through the worst thing in their life is going through the worst thing in their life. And there shouldn't be, well, it's not that bad. You just lost your mom, or you just lost, and I lost my whole family. Uh-uh, don't do that. It's my ability to be compassionate to anybody. Whether that's the gentleman who's battling addiction down the hallway, who is always causing a ruckus. There's still space for love. God didn't shun those lesser than him.
Right.
He helped them, and he went out of his way to do what he could. Now, there are days that I am so exhausted that I'm laying in bed wondering if it's worth the energy to take my next breath.
Mm.
That bad. And then I have other days where I'm on stage for 2 or 3 hours doing a performance, or giving a speech. And, I'm lucky enough to be able to do that. There are days like today where I'm sort of a bit struggly, bit okay. If I was to have done this on a set, I would have been hard pressed to have to travel out there. I would have had to lay down on an air mattress before the show and try to rest and try to gather what few bits of spoons I have left. Um, So I'm actually very thankful we're online. But it's one of those things is that we don't appreciate what we've got until
Mhm.
it's gone.
Mhm.
And but by getting sick, like I didn't actually understand God until I understood, like I would look behind at what had happened. If I hadn't have gotten sick, I wouldn't have made it onto that airplane back to Canada. I promised myself on that airplane, I'm never going to drink again. Of course I did. And then the day that I called AA, I picked up the phone, picked up my cell phone, and I was surprised because I got an answering machine, and it was like, "Hi, my name is CJ, and I'm not drunk right now, but." And I'm trying to explain that it's just my illness, that I can't speak very well, and then all of a sudden, beep, and I'm like, very unsatisfactory, by the way, just hitting a little red button. You can't slam the phone down anymore. I literally said to the universe, if you want me to get sober, they're going to have to call me back. And they did. And then I was like, well, dang. Um, but yeah, I mean, but each time, like when I first walked through the doors of AA, there was this stupid little sign. It would just drive me mad. It was attitude of gratitude. And I would look at that sign and just, "Grr, what am I supposed to be thankful for? I've lost my job. I'm sick. Nobody knows what's wrong with me. Some of the doctors are like totally gaslighting me and telling me I'm just mentally ill, and I'm not. I'm really just sick. And my partner is mad at me because he's like asking, well, when are you going to get well? I don't know. Waiting for medical care to come back, medical insurance to kick back in after being out of country for a few years. There was just so much that I was so angry about, you know. And until it finally clicked. Every time I went to meetings and people talked about being grateful for this, being grateful for that, going to some special alcoholic, some training on how to stay sober, and everybody was focused on this stupid gratitude thing until it clicked. Until I started saying, I can go to the light switch and turn on the light. There's light. I can go to the sink. I can turn it on. There's water. I can do this. I can do that. And I started recognizing all the blessings I did have.
Mhm.
And I started seeing God's hand in my life by initially looking backwards. If this hadn't have happened, then this wouldn't have happened. If that wouldn't have happened, then this wouldn't have. Like going from like after about a year with my partner, um, he was just very passive aggressive, abusive in that sense. And he was a drinker and I was not. And I was just hanging by the skin of my teeth. And finally, he went on a trip to England and I asked him to, cook me up some food so I'd have meals and not starve. He bought the food and didn't cook any of it and just left. And I was literally going to be starving for a week. And so that was the last straw. I packed up, I moved into the women's shelter. And I spent a couple of months there, and then I got to move into a senior's home, an assisted living situation, because God had paved the way. Because by joining that AA group and that little church had a little old lady who says, we have a seniors choir and you have to join it. But what? I'm 39. It doesn't matter. We need you in the alto section. She dragged me to this seniors choir and they said, don't worry, dear. We can all walk faster than you. Thank you, God. Um, but because I joined that choir, I learned about the craft room and I started volunteering in the craft room and doing friendly visiting with some of the seniors. I developed a whole group of people that loved me and felt like family.
Yeah.
So when I got out of the women's shelter, they let me move into that facility because God had already paved the way for me to have a sense of community and belonging in that spot. until government funding was finally approved. But that took, again, my church people getting me all the way to Toronto to see this specialist who looked at the paperwork my doctor wrote and said, "Oh my God, this is absolute poop," and 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 actually filled it in properly.
Mm.
If she hadn't have gotten mad, that blessing of somebody else doing such a bad job that she got mad enough to fill it in, I got approved on the first try. But it's so easy to just take these things for granted.
Mhm.
I started looking behind at all of the little things that had to happen before these bigger miracles could happen. Well, no, they were just stepping stones to greater success. When I started seeing those, I could start seeing them in the now, those moments when I was forced back to my hometown. My dad took seriously ill. He had developed dementia and was dehydrated, was poor, very malnutrition, all that sort of stuff, and he was in hospital. And we were have to sell his house. I'm in a wheelchair. Even getting up the 2 stairs into the house was hard. There was a full upstairs, a full downstairs. I had to get somebody to drive me there. I didn't have a vehicle at that time. Um, and I was going to sleep on an air mattress on the floor. Some neighbors found out what was going on. They brought over some real mattresses for me to sleep on. I ended up sleeping in the room where my mom died. Um, and it's still one of the saddest times of my life, having to tear down my dad's life of 50 years in this home and a house that was full of absolute tragedy and abuse and suffering. There were so many ghosts in that house for me, so many traumas. And yet I made a new best friend because I went there with an open heart, a willingness to accept love, to accept help, to be open to whatever God provided. I made a new best friend who was a friend of my dad's who lived across the street. She just shut down her life and just went, "Okay, this is what we're going to do." Um, I had a PSW friend who drove me up there and then drove a lot of my stuff back. I had people from church come up with 2 different vehicles to take stuff back to Cambridge. And this was like a 5.5 hour drive. It wasn't a small commitment. It was a pretty large commitment from friends. But we shut down my dad's house. We got him safely moved into a senior's residence near to where I live. Um, and I remember sitting on the mattresses and looking at a glass window at the backyard and realizing that there was this bush that my mom had planted years and years ago that was in full blossom. And I realized that my mom had been laying in bed and had seen that same bush in full blossom, just, you know, 7 or 8 months before she passed away. And we could share that moment. We could share that beauty. So even though that what happened in our family was a tragedy, I was still able to see the beauty and the joys within each day because I looked for those small joys, for
Mhm.
God's blessing, for His hand in the world. Instead of being resentful and angry, I found love, beauty, and acceptance. And that's hard to learn.
Mm.
Gratitude is a muscle that you have to work on, that you have to practice looking for.
Mhm.
You can turn your darkest days into not as bad days. They're still sad, they're still maybe tragic, they may still be very hard. But maybe at the hospital where a family member is, you see a beautiful bouquet of flowers. They're not for you, but that doesn't mean you can't see their beauty.
Right.
Maybe instead of turning away from a hug, you accept the hug, maybe from a complete stranger that helps you heal just a little bit. There are many, many opportunities to see beauty if you're willing to keep your heart and your eyes open to that sort of stuff.
Yeah. So true. So true. It is all about your perception if you are open to it. And you were open, and a lot of people need to become more open. Soften the heart. Once the heart is soft, because once you have a hard heart, it is hard to get through and to see gratitude. And you showed your transition. You talked to us, told us about your transition from seeing an image on, I think you said it was a picture, a description of gratitude and how you felt about it, and then changing into becoming soft hearted to see beauty. And that is what we need to see in all situations. No matter what, there is beauty because God resides in abundance and beauty, even through the hardship and ugliness. There's beauty. And that's the thing that we sometimes get confused, because we don't see beauty when we see our suffering and our pain. So I love the fact that your testimony is so beautiful, and the fact that you've gone through so many hardships and you've still seen beauty.
Okay, so Lady T, this is you got to take it away now. We still in the plane, we still flying, y'all. We still flying high. So Lady T, take it away now. Is equality the same as sameness? I didn't understand that. So can you elaborate on that? Oh, CJ's like no. Oh, so can you
Yeah,
just oh
I
hey, so
agree.
tell me. So tell me what's going on?
So
Equality? Yeah.
so I think equality recognizes differences, and sameness ignores differences, and it treats everybody identical. Sameness is all about the same, and equality ensures fairness and opportunity for all. So that is not the same. It all depends on the individual, because everybody has, of value, their rights and opportunities of fairness, and people's abilities and needs and circumstances are always different. So we strive to, give the same level of respect and dignity and a chance to thrive equality wise, but everybody is not the same. So you have to treat people differently, in the fact that it is about where they are individually. So that is why I think equality is not the same as sameness.
CJ, what do you think? Talk to us.
I 100% agree. Sameness means treating everyone exactly the same, regardless of their needs, circumstances, or abilities, versus equality means giving everyone a fair chance by recognizing their differences and providing what they need to succeed or to participate fully. So, if you've got, let's say you've got a bunch of students, okay, and some kids are in grade 12 and some are in kindergarten. Would you give them the same sized bicycle?
Right.
Absolutely not. So giving everybody the same thing doesn't make sense. Whereas equality would be giving each student a bike or an adaptive bike, let's say they're in a wheelchair, that fits their body and their needs so everybody can ride and participate.
Yep.
I agree with you guys, but then you can also let's. I'm not disagreeing, but let's look at it a different way, from a different angle now. Now, when you say equality, right, it gives you right. It gives everybody an opportunity to succeed. But now let's look at sameness, right? If you look at sameness, right, we all have the same opportunity to be great. You have to work to be great.
Nope.
Mm,
No, I'm
no, yeah,
no. So
no.
give. So you say no. So look, everybody have look. We have the same opportunity to be a child of God, but we have the same opportunity. Now look at equality. Is this you have the choice to have an opportunity to live for God. So when you bring it together, we all have the same opportunity to live for God. It's your choice to say yay or nay.
Does a child that's deaf and blind have the same opportunity as somebody who's fully healthy?
No,
No.
no, no, no. But they now watch this. But they do have. I'm not, like I said, I'm not disagreeing with y'all. I'm looking from a different set of lens. But guess what? A child that's deaf and blind do have the same opportunity to live for God. They do have the same opportunity. It's a different way because they have to go through something totally. You said it earlier. You have to go through something totally different to receive God. Our trials and tribulations are different. We all will not go through the same thing. We will not experience the same thing. We're going to experience something totally different because, look, one, it could be our upbringing. It could be the way our parents raised us, and it's something totally different than yours. And now, guess what? We still gonna have the same opportunity to see God. It's us. It's up to us to say, you know what? I want to live for Him. This is my choice. I choose that. I have an opportunity to live for God. I want that. And so I'm looking at it from a biblical sense. But when you look at it from a natural aspect of it, yes. When you look at it from a natural aspect of it, sameness and equality are two different things. But you also can look at it from a spiritual and a biblical aspect because guess what? My desire to live for God is not greater than yours. You may did it in a different way, but it's not no greater. My love for God is the same as yours because guess what? We're supposed to love Him unconditional as well as love people unconditionally. Some people don't do that. So my love for God is the same as yours because if you truly love Him 100%, and I do, guess what? We have the same love for God. And we did have the same opportunity, the equal opportunity. My choice and your choice was the same. It's equal, but it came in a different cost, a different price,
Or a different result.
a different result because of my choices and and I'm not saying you. I won't say you because of other people's choices. Their road becomes different than mine, but we're on the same path. But we're looking at it from a different perspective. Now, our goal is to get to the kingdom, but guess what? What I go through and you go through is something totally different. So our objective and our goal is so different, but the same.
So I would say we have the same choice to follow and find God, um, but we don't have an equal opportunity to make that choice. Because I, again, I turned from God as a child. But as an adult, I had finally had enough education and understanding and opportunity to be able to make that choice. So in that sense, yes, we have the same. We each have the choice to follow God or not to follow God. That part is black and white, you know.
Yeah, black
But
and white.
but
Yeah,
the journey to get to that choice is completely different.
of
So
course.
we're agreeing on that part. Um, I just don't think sameness is a healthy word. I
I,
think that
I
um,
agree.
sameness is a carte blanche. It's just like everybody's the same. Everybody is absolutely not the same.
Yes, yeah.
Everybody's journey is absolutely not the same. God's love for us may be the same, but He's perfect and we're not.
Right.
That's why. Look, that's why I said I'm not disagreeing with you guys because someone's made a comment and see so everybody have a different perception of it. It says for the most part, they are different but can be used in the same light. And then they wrote, equality is about treating others as equal, which in essence it means treating them the same. So it's a slippery slope. It depends on how you use it. But you did bring some light, shed some light on it too.
Definitely.
Yeah. So definitely, it like I said, it can go different ways, and people, as long as you put it in a positive light, I mean, you're doing the right thing. You take it and you change it up, like you said. and saying that we the same and we really not. Now, like, my journey, your journey is not the same. Like what I've been through and you've been through is not the same, and then somebody can get offended by that. So that's why I said you're right. You brought some light on because some people can look at sameness and equality and say, you know what, we not the same. Look, I don't have the same opportunity, but when you look at it from a biblical sense and not the natural, you can understand it better. That's why we are able to understand it better and bring it to a different understanding to people. Because like I said, I did not disagree with you guys. I totally agree. You know, with the equality and the sameness. So I'm in one accord with you guys.
I think
Legacy.
part of
Yeah.
it is just the English language.
Hmm.
It comes down to semantics. I can say, "Oh, I understand where you're coming from." No, you don't. Um, whereas if I say I can empathize with what you're saying, that's a completely different way of saying I
Yeah,
understand what you're saying
true.
in a way that is so much more inviting and polite
Yeah.
versus, I wouldn't treat my grandma the same as I would treat a 5-year-old grandchild. They aren't the same.
Right.
And quite likely God wouldn't either. A God would approach each one differently at their own needs because he knows exactly what we need and how we need it. So I don't think even he would be treating us the same. He would give us his love unconditionally, but how the path he chooses for us and the direction our life goes for the greatest benefit of those around us, for the world, even he can't treat us all the same, right?
Right, of course. I'm being honest and transparent. What you just said. Listen, I struggle with this. This what I struggle with. I used to say, wait a minute. I'm doing everything under the sun to try to live holy and righteous, God. And you mean to tell me somebody that's not living like that, just doing whatever they want, they're gonna have the same mercy and grace? Oh, I had a problem with that. I'm not gonna.
Hmm.
I had a problem with that. I'm like, oh no. So what's the purpose of me living holy and righteous? But God had brought me to an understanding is because guess what? You said it, having empathy, understanding, because guess what? You don't know what they've been through. You don't know they struggle. So you got to understand that God's going to have the same grace and mercy no matter how you live. Because guess what? There are going to be blessings that God's going to bless you because of your obedience, because of your discipline. He's going to bless you differently as he blessed somebody that's not living. So guess what? We all get the same mercy and grace. But guess what? In your obedience, there comes something great. In your discipline comes something great. It gives you something that you can understand. You know what, God? I know you're gonna love on this person. They have an addiction. You're gonna show them compassion. I understand that. And guess what? God see your heart. And guess what? You think he not when you fall and you doing something that you're not supposed to, God's gonna have that same compassion for you because guess what? We all gonna sin. We all gonna sin, and we gonna do something that's displeasing to God. And when we do that, guess what? That's where your grace and your mercy come in. Because guess what? God has shown somebody else that He gonna show you the same thing. They go that sameness. Gonna show. I'm trying to tell you, I'm serious. I had a big problem with that. And then another problem I had. I was at a Bible study one time, and the teacher was like, "Oh yeah, you can be a molester, a raper, a rapist, and God will show you mercy and grace." I said, "What?" Nah, I'm serious. I had a problem with that. I was like, "Wait, how is that possible?" But at the end of the day, that's where the empathy, compassion comes in. His compassion for us is greater than we even can imagine.
Yeah.
You know, it's go ahead. You wanted to say something, CJ?
It reminds me of something that happened for me is that one of the first things on my path to finding passion and purpose again in the world was I signed myself one job every single day. I had to go out either in person or online, and my one job was to make one person smile. And if I could make one person smile, I had done my job that day. And I would imagine that smile traveling the world, because we never know what our actions, the impact of our actions, how that can transform somebody else's day. And when I smile and they get that good feeling inside and they share that smile with somebody else, and it goes out and further, and I see it traveling the world. And I remember one day, um, I was at one of the craft room days, and one of the ladies that used to smile a lot, on this particular day, she was very sad. Now, one of my jobs is I would randomly compliment people. You look awesome. You're dressed to the nines. Are you doing a job interview? Whatever it was to try to brighten that person's day. And that particular day, I turned to her and I said, you know what? I have to tell you, I just love how your smile lights up the room. And I saw the most complicated set of emotions roll across her face. And she looked at me and she said, you know, today is the anniversary of my husband's passing. And he used to tell me that the thing he loved about me most was my smile.
Mm.
I think he sent you here to me today because I needed that.
Mm-hmm.
You just never know what somebody's going through.
Right.
That guy that's got road rage, that guy that, has been through abuse and then perpetuates that abuse. The traumas that our indigenous people have been through, that generational trauma. It's so pervasive. It doesn't excuse what they do. I chose to forgive the people who abused me. And that took a long time and a lot of self-healing before I could do that. But it is amazing how relieving that is. The people that do bad things, I just try to imagine what had to happen to them for them to end up that way.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I can feel sadness for them. And if I can do that,
God definitely could do that. And that's the most important thing I always say to people is once you get that relationship, I said this. I was on a show on Monday, and the one thing I always say, and I'm gonna keep on saying this, is that happiness is temporary, but joy is everlasting. Because that's what Christ gives you, everlasting joy. Because once you go through the storm, you understand no matter what, I'm gonna get up, I'm gonna keep doing what God has called me to do, and do it happily, do it with peace, do it with joy and excitement. And when you do it, that, like you said, you go into a room, they can see the joy that you have. They, you have so much of it, and you want to just spew out on everybody. You know what I'm saying? I always say, Lady T, about to laugh. You about to laugh? What I say, Lady T? What I
What you
say?
say? What you say?
I said I want to be contagious. Contagious, not like a disease. Contagious, like if I touch you, you got it. You gonna have nothing but joy. It's gonna be happy time, peace, joy, 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 joy. That's what it's gonna be. This is what. Look, I'm a hugger. I'm gonna keep on saying I'm a hugger. Because when I hug you because I'm really going to let you know that I love you. Like, come here, give me a hug, because at the end of the day, you don't know what, like you said, you don't know what a person is going through, but you want to show them, like, listen, listen, I don't know what you're going through, but I want to show you that, I care. I care enough to hug you. I care enough to say, you know what? I don't know how your day is, but hopefully, this hug that I give you can start your day, can kickstart your day, and make you have a smile on your face for the whole day, maybe for the whole week. You know what I'm saying? I'd love to see that. And when I come in the room, I'm like, yo, hey, sad faces up in here. Come on, pick that up. Pick your spirit up. Come on. I don't like being around people with sad faces and mad faces. I'm out of there. I'm sorry. And I gotta say, I gotta make a disclaimer because I know my boy, he probably watching. Look,
Mm-hmm.
if God called me to that place and I see a lot of frowns, I'm gonna have to stay there. I'm gonna be stuck there, but I'm gonna be like, hey, pick yourself up. Come on. What's going on? I want to talk. I want to get the energy up. I want to get the blood flowing. I want to get you talking and saying, you know what? I've been through something, but look where I am at now. Look, you got another opportunity to do it all over again. Some people don't wake up. Some people don't even have the same opportunity again. Guess what? You woke up, you got another opportunity. You got another chance to do it all over again. So that's me motivating you to say, you know what? Yeah, you know what? You're right, Chef. I've been through something, and I'm ready to come out of that darkness. I'm ready to come out of that hurtness. I'm ready to come out of that burden, because that's what it is. It's a burden, right, Lady T? It's a burden that keeps you to a place of misery, not being happy, not being accepted, not being wanted, because you think, oh, because this person did you wrong, now everybody else gonna do you wrong. No, get out of that. Come out of that. Come. Ah, woo.
It
Go
makes
ahead,
me.
Lady T.
It reminds me of a song. We shall be known by the company we keep. Well, as we anyway, but anyway, we shall be known by the company we keep.
Mm-hmm.
And so the three principles I teach are, that attitude of gratitude, becoming really willing to fearlessly fail, and find your folks. And when you do one and two, the third one comes along
Mm-hmm.
almost automatically. And when we surround ourselves with people that have that higher energy, people like you, people like Lady T, when we're entering into a room and you see that smiling face, it can lift. You're acting as that beacon of light. You're acting, you're attracting the people that need to rise with you. Um, and you will find those that are even on higher wavelengths than you are, and because they're on that higher wavelength, you want to catch up, and I want to be like them. I want to be that joyful. I want to be that happy. I want to be achieving even more for the glory of God. And you know I had an experience. I attended a webinar, and it was, I was saying, okay, well, in 2028, I'm going to create this 2-day conference, and trade show for Disabilities Unleashed. And the guy looked at me and said, "No, you got to dream bigger. Next year, you're going to do it next year."
Mm-hmm.
I went, "Oh heck no, you can do it."
But he's right though. You
You
got
know.
speed
Uh,
in existence. That's what he
so
began to
I
do.
gotta get to the show in 2 weeks, and then once that one's done, I have another one in December. But I can start. I've already started laying some of the bricks. I've already got a company in China that's interested in displaying a very special wheelchair that isn't around this area. So they're interested in maybe getting a trade show table. I'm talking tomorrow with a venue about what would it cost to rent for 2 days. Um, you know, I may not be able to get the venue for 2 years, but I
No,
can.
don't say that. You if that's what God has for you to do. Seriously, no, I'm that serious. Like you got to speak that, give that life, because guess what? If that's what God has for you, it's going to be done, and He's going to pave the way for you. Don't sell yourself short. Don't say no. If you no, truly, when you doing
I'm not
something,
saying no. I'm
oh,
just
when
don't yet have the skills. I don't have the people. Like this entire show that I'm putting on in a couple of weeks. I have done everything myself. I've found the funding. I have found the venue. I have found all the performers, auditioned them, trying to do all the social media by myself. I am dead tired.
Mm-hmm.
Literally, I could be damaging my health by doing it all by myself. I
Yeah.
need to start finding those people.
Yeah.
Sorry, my cat feeder's going off. Uh, but I need to start creating that circle of people around me
Mm-hmm.
that will hold me, that will start
Mm-hmm.
filling in those pieces that I can't handle on my own.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I'm putting that out into the universe, is that God, I need my cheerleaders, I need my volunteers,
Mhm.
I need those detail people, that are willing to start at no to low cost until we can make this something massive. Because July is Disability Pride Month, and
Hmm.
in 2024, last year in June, I went online and there wasn't a single event in the region of Waterloo, not one. And I got sad, I got mad, and then I decided to become the change I wanted to see in the world. And people started believing in me because I talked to this friend and they talked to that friend, and all of a sudden, would you like to do your show in December? Wait, what? This was September. In 3 months, I put together the first ever Disability Unleashed show. But I still had the promise to keep that I made, that I would do a show in July. So I've had to do this one completely by myself, and
Mhm.
it's happening. Oh, God willing, that my health stays strong enough. Um, but God is providing in amazing ways.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, there are big plans. There's big hopes. There's big dreams. There's, trying to break free of poverty. When you're on disability, I'm living 50% below the poverty line. Putting down a deposit on a massive facility, no. Um,
Mhm.
so I have to get sort of vendors in place even before we start. I need to have that influx of cash to be able to pay for the venue, to do this and do that. I don't know what I'm doing,
Right.
but that second thing that I teach, become willing to fearlessly fail.
Hmm.
I'm doing that. I
Yeah.
am
That's
taking those steps. I am reaching out of that comfort zone and doing stuff that scares the poop out of me, but we're doing it. You know, when I go against his will, things get really hard in a very different way. Like there's just roadblock after roadblock after roadblock, and it's only my stubbornness to try to push through the roadblocks, and I inevitably fail and fall down. Whereas when it is his will, though things are hard, because he wants us to grow, um, things can and do happen. So I don't know. I would say leave it in God's hand. I don't know if you've heard the joke about the guy that has the lottery, wants to win the lottery, and he goes to God and he prays every Friday afternoon, God, please let me win the lottery. And he goes and he looks at the numbers. Now he didn't win. And the next week he goes, God, I've been so good this week. Please let me win the lottery. And after about 6 months, God finally gives up and he looks down at the guy and he says, buy a ticket.
Ain't that something?
Mhm. Listen,
But
but
CJ, I have to say this. I do I am grateful for your comment about how people say that they understand when they should really say they empathize, because that is very true. Because I feel like that is, words matter. And, when I speak, I truly want to be able to say the appropriate words at the time, whoever I'm speaking with, because it's not the same for everybody, right? And so I'm grateful that you brought that empathize instead of saying that you understand or you understood something, because truly we do not understand other people's circumstances, whatever they're going through, because we've not gone through it. So we have to look at it in a different way to say we empathize, to understand it in a different way. And another thing I will say, you mentioned about earlier how people have abused you in the past, and you look at their situation and have what I will say compassion. You had compassion for them for doing the wrongdoing to you. And I immediately I was like, yes, that's exactly how God is coming into your life. That's it. That is the point. When you can look at something so negative that happens to your life and empathize with that person to say, Lord, forgive them for they know not what they do. They know not what they do. And yet you see it and you can empathize. You can say, I have compassion because they went through something for them to make the decision to affect me. And when you see that, God is there. God is like, you are paying attention, honey. You are seeing things. You are seeing something in another person that is wrong, that might not be appropriate, that is definitely not appropriate. And you see it in a different way, not to judge it and criticize it and become a victim of it, but become over top, like over, above it. Look at it in a different perspective to say, this is God showing you something totally different and about to put you through a situation that will bring you into an enlightenment. And we have to go through our trials and tribulations to get to an enlightened state. Because we go through life, we don't know what we're doing. We make a lot of mistakes. We do it in a young age. We are young children making so many mistakes in life. And God says, hey, 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 pay attention, pay attention. Sometimes it's a sudden, accident, something of a sickness, but it can be very brutal at times to get our attention. But when we get the attention of God and we pay attention to God, then we become a different person. And your story is all about that. And that's why I love how, I feel like I've learned a lot when it comes to that word empathize, because I've always said, I understand, but not really. It's more like, nah, I don't understand because I've never gone through it. I've never experienced it, but I can empathize. And then there's also the compassionate part of it because that's what Jesus always talked about. Have your compassion for your fellow brother, your fellow sister. You do not know what they've gone through. You do not know their journey, but you have to understand that they are human. They're going to make mistakes, and you have to accept their mistakes, even if it affects you, and
Yeah.
trust and surrender that God has a plan for your life and their life, and it'll be good for you. But I'll say this. This is my last thing. I think that everybody has to learn how to, and I say this all the time, Chef. He hears me say this. Know God within yourself and trust in God and only God and not look outside of yourself. You have to know God within yourself, because once you know God within yourself every single day and you trust in that every single day, your spiritual walk will become brighter and grander. I mean, it will be so humongous, because that's what Jesus taught us. He said, you can do the things I do. You can heal yourself and you can heal others. But we have not gotten to that point because we are not mindful of what the abilities that we have mentally and in the heart, because it's all connected. Once you get to the spirit, you can do so many great things. But of course, I'll say the system is set up to make us fail. And when I say the system, I'm talking about this world. There's so many systems of this world to make us fail. So we have to go through that as well. So we all have to appreciate the fact that we're in this system. Well, I'll say the matrix. We'll say the matrix system. And we have to
And then
go
they
through
matrix.
it, right? So, but thank you for that. You really have touched my heart. You've made me understand things differently. I appreciate everything you've said, truly.
If you want to be somebody, if you want to go somewhere, you've got to stand up and pay attention.
Go ahead, Lady T. Your turn.
Hey, and that's another question. So when did you start singing?
I apparently was singing in harmony with my mom by the age of 3. So
Oh.
this is a God-given talent. Has nothing to do with me. I compose music, but I can't write music, which is interesting. So I can do the whole singing part. If you look up CJ Jansen on SoundCloud, you can find a number of my songs there. Like one of the songs I do is initially I called it Little Angels, but I call it Don't Give Up. I'll just do the first verse, but not long ago I reached my end, thinking I could never mend. But when all was black and sad, a little angel came and said, don't give up. Hold your head up high. Right now the skies are cloudy, but soon they will be blue. I won't give up on you. And it goes on from there.
Listen, hey man, look, I'm so serious. Look, I don't care what nobody say. Know this: don't ever lose that desire to live for God. Now you didn't turn my spirit whole way up. Listen, don't ever let nobody tell you anything different. You have came through the storm. I'm getting excited right now. You came through the storm, and listen, don't ever let nobody steal your joy, your your peace, your happiness. It's undeniable. God has brought you out and you keep it. You stand firm in it because guess what? He has brought you out for a purpose and you're going to give other people hope. God is going to continue using you. Don't ever stop. Don't ever stop. Don't let if somebody tell you can't sing, don't you keep singing. You keep speaking. You keep doing it because guess what? It is filling your cup up. So it was going to run over and over. And guess what? What happens to when a cup runs over? It spills on everybody because guess what? It's everywhere. The liquid is that's how God was going to run through your body. He's going to run through it and it's going to spill. Every place you go, it's going to spew out. And guess what? That's your joy. The joy that he has instilled in you is going to come out. So just have that visual, like that cortex right there. What I'm talking about when you pouring something in a glass and it's just pouring out, it's pouring out. That's the Christ in you. It's going to continuously pour out. And guess what? When you go into a room, it's going to pour out. It's not going to seep. It's going to pour out. And that's your joy. And man, I'm so excited. I'm so serious. I'm not. This ain't no show for me. This is real. This is why I do what I do because I get excited when I have other people going through something and they telling their story, they telling their testimony. I get excited because guess what? You're going to change somebody else's heart when they listen to this. You're going to change their mindset, their thought process, and they say, you know what? If she can do it, I can do it, and that gives them a place where that's called hope. You know what I'm saying? And God is going to continue to use it. And guess what? Everything that your heart desires, that is going to be the will for God for you in your life. Guess what? It's going to happen. It's going to pass through. And I'm not just saying that. I'm confirming that for you because guess what? When you live for God and you do His will, guess what? Everything that we have a heart desire for, God gives us that. But it has to be in alignment of Him, and you're doing that. You're in the alignment of what God has for you, the desire to do His will. And guess what? He's going to bless you in that, and you're going to bless other people. And guess what? And when you leave this earth, guess what? God's going to say to you, "Good and faithful servant, well done." He's going to say that. Continue doing what you're doing because guess what? You have definitely stepped on from the battle to the glory and blessed us with a spirit that we'll never forget.
Yeah.
We'll never forget the joy that you brought to this table or this platform. I know Lady T feel the same way, and everybody that's watching. Trust me when I tell you. And I want you. I'm going to keep in touch with you because as you can see, I'm like I move around. I move around because guess what? When I touch someone, it's because God want me to touch, and I say touch in spiritual. When God wanted me to come in alignment with somebody, He definitely allowed me to connect with that person because He know there's something that we need to connect on, and it's nothing but the will of God, and that's my desire. That's my one. Listen. I tell anybody I don't want to be famous, but guess what? I want to be famous in God. That's what I want to be famous in. I want Him to say, "Good, thou faithful servant, well done." That's it. And discipline for me is not easy. It's hard. I'm saying it. It's hard, but I work at it every day. I work at being disciplined. I work at being obedient, and I say that to anybody. Work at that. It's work. It's hard. If you want to be successful, guess what? You got to work at it. You got to grind. You got to get in the trenches, and you have to work at it. So when you want to be disciplined and obedient, you got to work at it. I'm working at it. I want to be obedient to when he said, "Listen, you got to leave your job, and I want you to go do something else." I gotta be able to be ready for that. Prepared. Preparing myself in this season, in this journey that I'm in. Me and my wife, that's a journey. Because guess what? When he say move, I want to be able to hear him and move. Even when I don't want to. I'm serious because I didn't came encountered with a lot of people who have done that. This one pastor, he was a cop, good career, good pension. God said, I don't want you to do this no more. He had to resign. And he didn't even have that many years. He had to leave because he wanted to live for God. God's like, look, that's it. I don't want you to be this. I have something else greater for you. And it was being a pastor. He's a pastor now. You look at that. He was an officer, top of his class, getting ready to be a sheriff. I said, no, that's something better for you. Do my work. Be a pastor. And listen, he ain't doing it for money. He's doing it that's what God has called him to do. He had to leave everything. Everything. I was like, oh, I ain't ready to be the pastor. I don't want to be a pastor. I'm serious. I say that like Lady T said Lady T, you want to be a pastor?
No. But look, let me ask CJ a
Go ahead,
question. So, what is your hope and desire through your purpose in life for what God is calling you to do? What mission, in whatever words that you could explain it, what mission, purpose do you feel God is calling you to do in this lifetime?
So, having suffered as much as I did, having had to rebuild my life as I've had to do, like, it's sort of a standing joke. At Toastmasters, you have to give an icebreaker speech and tell a little bit about your story. And the first question I asked them is, what does a babysitter, a lifeguard, a paramedic, a truck driver, a master scuba instructor, a disabled person, a speaker, an author, and a singer, uh, and a disability advocate have in common?
Mm.
Me. Oh, and professional clown. Forgot that one. Um, I have done all of these things. I drove an 18-wheeler for 10 years. I was a paramedic before that. And then I, on a wing and a prayer, literally flew off from Canada to Honduras and started a career as a scuba instructor and traveled the world doing that. And then I got sick and I was forced back. I've had a wingdinger of a life. But it's because of all of those experiences, I've opened so many different doors and windows in life. I'd have a much broader perspective. And, it was by getting sick this time and being, part of Toastmasters that I have learned to put words to the steps of rebuilding my life, which again, those are, become, um, uh, live in a learn how to live in a constant state of gratitude, become willing to fearlessly fail, and find your folks. But in giving that speech, God, I think he's just turned my corner, because of this thing that happened last June when he said, "No, you're going to put on a show in July." No, no, by the way, you're doing it in December and July and December because I already have the next show booked. And now I got voted in now recently as the vice chair of the City of Cambridge Accessibility Advisory Committee. I was just won an award for women of distinction from the YWCA for my city. Um,
Yay.
yeah, because Chef Dennis was telling mentioned that he saw me on my Facebook. I had just raised over $1,000 for ALS. Earlier in the year, I did a cancer swim where I raised over $3,000. I couldn't do the cancer walk, so I swam instead.
Mhm.
Um, I sang in a mass choir, and we raised over $14,000 towards creating low income housing for seniors. It's amazing what the opportunities God puts in front of you to better the world and the people around you. But he seems to want me to very much focus on disability and inclusion, which is why this conversation the sameness conversation was interesting, that we had today. But I think my purpose is to improve the lives of people with disabilities, because there are over 2.1 billion people in the world who identify as disabled, having some form of disability, physical, mental, learning, whatever. Um, and because of that, like that touch screen that you use was actually designed to accommodate somebody with a disability. So many of the inventions that we use nowadays were designed because of people with disability. What we create today can make all the difference for you, your daughter, your grandchild, whatever, in future years to come. Disability is the only minority group that anybody can join at any time.
Mhm.
I never expected to get sick.
Right.
I never expected to go from scuba diving 2 to 4 times a day to being 80+% bedbound every day. Nobody expects to get cancer. Nobody expects to be in a car wreck. Nobody expects to survive a house fire with third-degree burns.
Right.
But it happens. So, especially with what's happening for you guys, there's a lot of things being taken away, health treatments. And it isn't just one country that's experiencing this. There's a number of countries that are sort of showing a backlash against disability, equality, and inclusion, and that's very sad. And they need people who have voices. And I think that might be my purpose, is to be the beacon, to be a voice, to be willing to fight, even when I'm often too weak to stand up on my own. Um, I have a way with words, I have a way with song and storytelling to make things impactful. So, yeah, I think that's I think that's my path. I feel
Wonderful.
that's my path.
Well, guys, I was sitting here looking at my phone. I definitely want to acknowledge, and my heart goes out to some of the families in Texas
Yes.
with the flood. Um, that is sad, and I pray that some of the people who's have lost ones. I pray that God gives them strength, because that is definitely a tragedy.
Yeah.
Uh, and as we speak about the love of God, I pray that God shows them tremendous grace and mercy, because it was a camp where the
Yeah.
children were asleep and
Yeah.
the flood took them. I understand that there's nothing in this world that God does not allow, for whatever purpose or whatever reason. But our heart still has to go out to the families, because we don't understand the purpose. We don't understand the condition. We don't understand the why. But at the end of the day, we ask God to just cover the families, that are going through right now. Actually, my son lives in Texas, and he's all right. And But it doesn't matter about him. It's about the people that lost something, some loved ones, some property. And it's like I said, it's a truly tragedy. And when you're praying tonight, I pray that you guys pray for them, that they get strength. And this is going to be the end of our session, and we are definitely going to continuously to reach out to you, CJ, because we definitely going to have you on again. Don't think we're going to forget about you. Trust me. And we're going to have other people on here with you as well, because guess what? We want other people to hear your story, your testimony, and we want them to be encouraged just as much as you have encouraged us. Go ahead, Lady T.
Okay,
I see.
so CJ, can you tell us? It says the singing, and then it kind of goes off, and then it says creator and producer of disabilities, and then it goes off a little bit. So tell us about you, where we can find you, all your information, because we didn't go through all that.
Okay, so it's CJ Jansen, the singing speaker.
Speaker.
Yeah, and creator and producer of Disabilities Unleashed.
Unleashed.
Yeah.
Okay.
You can find me at cjjansen.com, and just Google CJ Jansen. I'm the first 4.5 pages.
Love it. You got
Uh,
it. You got the spot.
yeah.
I even showed up on ChatGPT from a complete stranger who never knew me that day. He Googled me and it or ChatGPT'd me, and it was quite informative.
Good.
And So, CJ, I want to tell you this. So we are working on a panel where we're gonna have some of the guests that has been on to get together. But I'm going to pray about it because I want the right people to be on that panel so we can all talk, have a conversation, and just share our journey that's been going on in 2025. Because I have a lot. I've had so many guests. They have blessed me, and you're definitely going to be one of the ones. I'm serious because your story. Now, listen. We have had some other people that had some stories that'll blow your mind. Yours is one of them, and it's not about. And I always say to people, it's not about just telling your business. It's your testimony that can change
Yeah.
someone's life. It can transform them because they say, "Wow, man, I have never been through something else, but what I'm going through is nothing compared." And what that does is it gives them an opportunity to say, you know what? If she can do it, I can do it. He can do it, I can do it. All things are possible through Jesus Christ. All things. And listen, definitely we're gonna have you. Like I said, we're gonna be chatting. I'm on Facebook, and I'm always checking on you, making sure you're doing good, making sure you in good spirits. So the Chef Dinner's gonna be here. Look, when I say I'm gonna do it, and you were like, "Oh, Chef Dinner, so you said he was gonna be." I had just to show you that I'm being honest and transparent. All right, I was on another show, right, and I connected with some of the people. So one of the women, where she was a singer, she had an album, right? I told her I'm gonna buy her album. I said, look, I just text her today. I said, listen, I didn't forget about you. I said, a lot's been going on. I said, so now, I said, she said, well, I'm gonna make sure that I have it just for you because it's a signature. I said, okay, cool. I said, please don't forget me because I'm going to do it. I'm going to buy it. And so also text me, send me anything that you have, any books, anything that you want people to know about. I'll put it in the chat. I'll put it in, and definitely when we do the shorts, I will send it to you so you can put it on your social media as well, all the shorts and everything. Okay, and so it was
I do
definitely
have
an
a
honor.
book coming out, so
Yes,
Oh,
so you
yeah.
definitely gonna make sure you keep me posted, keep me in the loop, and I'm definitely gonna be continuously reaching out to you. And we love you here at From the Battle to the Glory. And when we say this, we are honestly and transparent about that. We just listen. My heart goes to you,
thank
and I know Lady T does too.
Yes.
And so we are going to conclude this show, and we will see you guys tomorrow. Please be blessed and enjoy the rest of your evening.